neurodiverse writer? It turns out I am. I've read a lot of self-help books over the years, taken a lot of courses, but when I couldn't do the things, even the so-called simple things, I felt like a failure. It wasn't until I was in my mid-40s when I found out I was ADHD and autistic, got diagnosed, and I'd like to thank TikTok for putting that idea in my head. Because until that point, I thought I was broken. I mean, what else can you think when you can't do something everyone else says is simple, like build a habit? But trying to build a habit isn't the only bad advice I've received in my life. So that's why I'm going over the worst productivity advice for the neurodiverse writer. If you're a neurodiverse writer, you're going to want to watch this video. Hi novelteers, I'm Devlin Blake, novel writing and self-publishing expert, book coach, published author, and former ghostwriter of 200 books. If you're writing a book, be sure to check out my Novel Writers Club in the comments. So, building a habit. That's the worst advice I've ever gotten. I have very few things I consider habits. Even brushing my teeth is something I do, but it's not something that's a habit. Because a habit implies you don't have to remember to do it. And I always have to remember to do it. And everyone tells you to just build a writing habit. And that's a lot easier said than done if you have a problem building habits. So instead of building a habit, I'm going to suggest building an obsession. I have another video on how to build an obsession with your book. So we'll go into that later. But there's no need to build a writing habit when you can build an obsession. Another bit of horrible advice is keep your butt in the seat until you can write. Nope, that's really bad advice. Because here's what happens when you do that, especially as a new neurodiverse writer. You just sit there, doing nothing, stressing, or possibly researching, until the timer dings and you escape this drudgery. Soon your brain sees writing as drudgery itself, and once that happens, there's no coming back from that. Your book could be in limbo for years or forever. Again, creating a writing obsession is your best way to handle that. Once your brain sees writing as a fun thing to do instead of a chore that has to be done, then you're genuinely going to want to do it. But putting your butt in the seat is never going to accomplish that. Another piece of bad advice is reward yourself for a job well done, for finishing that chapter, that book, for that 1 hour of writing time. Again, this is horrible advice, especially for the neurodiverse. It comes from training animals, where this actually works. A dog is going to sit for you if you train them by using treats, and any trainer will tell you each time your dog sits on command, a treat should be offered. But that's a dog. That's not a person. And don't get me wrong, I like dogs, but they don't have the higher function of a human, and that's where the problem comes in. Writing is a lot more complicated than sitting for a treat. So if you use treats as a motivator for your writing, your brain is going to associate writing with treats. But that also means once you stop treating yourself, your brain is going to go, "Where's my treat? I'm not doing this without a treat." And that makes it impossible to become a better writer. You just turned it into a chore. When you're new at writing a paragraph seems like a big deal. And as you write more, writing a chapter becomes a big deal, and then writing several chapters, and then writing a whole book. But doing the external reward thing, or the treat technique, gives your brain no room to grow, since it's still looking for the same treat you gave it after writing a paragraph, but now the treat is at the end of the whole chapter. And your brain finally decides that the treat is too far away. It's not worth this. It's no longer going to make the connection between writing and treat, and it's just going to go, "Forget this, I'm out of here." And you're never going to be able to finish your book if that happens. So the solution is to make writing itself the treat. Once you stop thinking of it as something you have to do, and start seeing it as something you actually want to do, or something you get to do, you're not going to need external motivation to get it done. And the last bit of bad productivity advice for neurodiverse writers is eating a frog. Don't actually eat a frog, by the way, that's a metaphor. And you might have heard of this. It's from a book called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. It's also from a Mark Twain quote that says something about how when he has something unpleasant to do, he eats a frog first, so everything else is better than doing that. I'm pretty sure he meant a metaphorical frog, but it's Mark Twain and you never know. I wouldn't put it past him to eat a real one. Anyway, the metaphorical frog in question is your biggest, hardest, most unpleasant task. If you do that first, everything else should be easy, right? Wrong! That's not going to work if you're neurodiverse. Back when I tried to use this advice, I would literally stay in bed for hours, unable to face that frog. I went whole days like that. And no, I wasn't depressed, even though that task frog was seriously stressing me out. It turns out it's an executive function thing. And if you're neurodiverse, you're going to understand what I just said. So what is the solution then? Because that frog isn't going away, and eventually you're going to have to eat it. Well, the solution is a technique I just recently learned has a name called the dopamine ladder. It's where you stack small, fun tasks on top of each other so that you get a hit of dopamine. After several hits by stacking several small tasks together, you have enough dopamine floating around to actually eat that frog. So instead of starting with your largest task, start with your smallest task or your most fun one. One that can give you a quick win and a quick hit of dopamine. That will make eating that frog, whatever that frog is, completely easier. And that is some of the worst productivity advice for neurodiverse writers. Once you understand more about your own productivity style, brain, and how you work, writing a book becomes not such a scary task. You'll be able to tap into that power of productivity and get more done than you've ever dreamed possible. I offer more productivity tips inside my membership, the Novel Writers Club. You can find it at the link below. Also remember to like and subscribe to see more videos on writing and publishing your novel. Until next time, this is Devlin Blake saying, write on.